This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Yesterday, we have to start off with the loss to Oak State yesterday. They ended up losing to a guy with a mullet. Now, look, I expected them to lose, and I expected the game that I saw early on when it was 21-0. I'm sitting there going, okay, well, this is kind of what I expected. I didn't really have a lot of hope for this game. I will give the kids some credit that they fought, man. They came back after, King goes down. They show a lot of heart. And N'Kosi Perry actually played the best football he's ever played in a uniform. And if those guys don't drop passes, you might end up winning that game.
Yep,
when it's
that's
all
it. Drop passes.
When it's all said and done. And so to me, this is where, it's depressing, because I'm not into moral victories. This is a college football program that's way past that. This is a college football program that ended the season last year losing to FIU, losing to Duke, and losing to Louisiana Tech by a combined score of 71-41. This is a university in its second year under Manny Diaz. Well, their three biggest games. They lost to Clemson 42-17. They lost to UNC 62-26. And they lost to Oak State 37-34. They lost those games by a combined 141-77. Okay? So we're talking about a program that is middling. I give the kids credit for the fight last night, but it does nothing for me. It sells me nothing. It sells me that Manny Diaz is not suited to be a head coach, and it's just, to me, and look, he's not going anywhere for a couple of years, okay? They're stuck with Manny for at least 2 more years. They don't have the money to get rid of him. And after a COVID year now where you didn't have any butts in seats, you made a lot less money this year. That you needed that money not just for your football program, but you needed it for several athletic programs to also support, and the U couldn't come up with that money. So there's no way there's any buyouts or any of that craziness that any of you thinking about, And listen, I'm not even saying to fire him yet, okay? But I have no hope for the guy. I really don't. Probably by next year, I'll just want to get rid of him already if there's another one of these seasons. And they still financially will not be able to get to it, But we have to start admitting to ourselves that we were wrong about this guy. Because I wanted him. A lot of you out there wanted Manny to be your coach. I mean, we were all pumped up. What he did on defense, his personality, all of that. He sold us. And unfortunately, what he sold us is not something I want to buy anymore. And when I listened to him, I was talking about this today on Onside Radio. When I listen to him, I hear the Peanuts teacher. Wah, 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 wah. That's what I hear from Manny Diaz. I don't hear anything else. I actually can't even listen to what he's actually saying because it's gibberish to me at this point. He was talking at the end of the press conference last night that, we've got to get to that next level. And, dude, they're several levels away. Okay? Because if you're not at the level of Oak State or UNC, what are we talking about to get to Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State? That's several levels up. And so, to me, Manny is proving that he does not belong in this job. And at this point in time, I have to say that I'm dead wrong about this. I don't know where they go now. Now, it's a matter, I don't really have a lot of hope for this team at all anymore. It's just one of those things that I can't, it's hard for me to feel good about this situation. And one of the things that I trip out on with a lot of you out there is that you think Blake Baker is the guy, right? That, Julius 305, Blake Baker is the reason my fantasy football team sucks. And so Julius is blaming Blake Baker for his fantasy team. We got to blame Blake Baker for everything. And I love that Julius put that up because that was kind of a theme last night I had on social media. I blame Blake Baker for the new coronavirus strain. I blame Blake Baker for not getting more than $600 in our government checks. You know, the 2,000. It's all Blake Baker's fault.
He influenced Mitch McConnell.
Everything is Blake Baker's fault, and it really isn't. It just isn't. It's a lazy thing that people are saying because it's the easy thing to say. Right? And I've talked about this now in the last 24 hours a couple times. It's not Blake Baker's fault that they have no linebackers. It's not Blake Baker's fault that Mike Rump sucks at putting together a secondary. It's not Blake Baker's fault that his best defensive end opted out at the beginning of the season. It's not Blake Baker's fault that his second and third best defensive ends decided not to play in the bowl game. But yet we want to blame everything on Blake Baker when he's running Manny Diaz's defense. Do you not think Andy Reid goes over to Eric Bieniemy and says, "Now let's run this instead"? You know, in this situation, I like this a little bit more. And you think Eric Bieniemy doesn't change it for what Andy wants? Hell yeah. Do you know who still coaches the defensive backs in Alabama? Nick Saban. You know, he's got a defensive coordinator. Do you think that defensive coordinator does everything on his own? You think Nick Saban doesn't have a thing to say or two or three or 10? Come on, man. All of a sudden, I'm not a newborn, dude. I did not just come out of the womb. I'm not that stupid, that young, that naive. So let me ask you all out there, the lazy people that want to blame everything on Blake Baker. Are you blaming Rhett Lashley for the 6 drops? Because those are his receivers, right? Even though he didn't recruit them, and I wouldn't blame Rhett Lashley, like I'm not blaming Blake Baker for certain things, but then don't we do the same thing both ways? If we're going to blame Blake Baker for everything that happens on the defense, well, then I've got to blame Rhett Lashley for N'Kosi Perry's fumble, for the hold by the guard on a terrific play that was called back. Hell, wasn't it a touchdown? Might have been a touchdown, right? Yeah. So the guard calls back a touchdown, which they end up settling for a field goal, right? So you gave up 4 points there. What'd you lose, by 3? Okay? The 6 drops yesterday. Do we blame them all on Rhett Lashley too? I'm wondering. Just help me out here. Because it's like we don't do it equally. You know? And it's the team that is not prepared week in and week out. It's the team that's not prepared for a bowl game. And it's the head coach. So the guy that deserves all the heat is not Blake Baker. It's not Rhett Lashley. It's Manny Diaz. Manny Diaz is the guy that needs to be called out for what's gone on for 2 years. When you lose to FIU, you need to be called out. When you get your ass kicked by North Carolina, you need to be thoroughly ripped. Okay? That's just the way it is. And last night, I'm not into moral victories. You're supposed to win that game. It's not be competitive. Oh, we came up short against the mullet man. No, man. I'm not doing that. That's not satisfactory for me. Why? Because you opened up the game 21-0. It was disgraceful. At that point, all of us thought the game was over. I'm sure a lot of you even turned off the damn game. I got a couple of buddies of mine that told me yesterday, I turned it off at 21-0. I went to watch the Heat, and I go, well, what'd you get out of that? This was a game at least. The Heat
went from bad to worse.
Yes, dude. The Heat was never a game last night. Even the UM basketball game went down to the last second when Isaiah Wong missed a three-pointer.
Nice comeback, 17 points down, right?
Yeah, yeah. But that's a real coach. You know,
You know what?
Exactly. Jim Larinaga is just a badass.
I wish we could get a football player at that level.
A football coach at that level, you mean?
I'm sorry. Yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Football coach we need that's equal
head coach, by the way,
yes,
that's specified.
Yes. A football head coach that's equivalent to what Larinaga is. as a coach. I mean, it's just it's embarrassing. And I know it's frustrating because this has been going on for 15 plus years now, that this is just a middling program. You know, and I've said this throughout the season. UM is no longer a must-see event. It's not an event anymore. Hasn't been an event for years now. You know, it's not something that it's not. I got to be honest. I watch it because I love them and I want them to win and all that, but I'm not excited to watch a UM game anymore because all I ever am is terrified of what headache am I going to deal with next when it comes to the University of Miami. Seriously, that's what. Like, what disaster is going to happen today? What am I going to be disappointed about? That's what. It's kind of like what the Dolphins used to be. The same thing. I love the Dolphins to death, man. I want them to win. But, 20 years prior to Chris Greer and Brian Flores, I was watching a Dolphin game waiting for the next disaster, waiting for the next controversy, waiting for the next stupid transaction, bad trade, terrible signing, bad coach, whatever. That's all. And the University of Miami football program is exactly the same way I have felt for the Dolphins for 20 years prior to Chris Greer. Exactly the same way. I have no confidence. I never feel comfortable watching that game. Every time I watch a UM game, I'm expecting, I prepare for the worst.
No, and even when things are going good,
yeah,
you know that the bottom's going to fall. You're 10-0. You're 10-0, and you end up 0-3.
Right. Exactly. Right. That's exactly it.
They set you up for the fall.
And it's just and then I have that coach after the games spinning everything and trying to make everything into this incredible positive and all that stuff. And I just lose respect for Manny every time I see him out there. And so I'm at a point now where it's like he's what he came from, a politician. You know?
Wow, that's a serious correlation.
I'm just saying, he's the son of a politician, and dude, that's what I see up on the podium. Want, because really, I mean, you hear politicians and they're making all these promises, and you're all sitting there going, "Yeah, sure, dude. Yeah, want."
There's no solace in the fact that Derek King does go down. We all know how important he is to the offense, and the fact that we did come back. And, maybe if Derek would have been healthy, considering what transpired, we might have won the game. You can't.
Well, no, if they don't hang on to Jacory's passes, how are they going to hang on to King's?
You know what, man?
It wasn't.
It comes down to those drop passes.
Jacory played well enough to win that game.
Yes, he looked at the best we've seen him look.
No, that was the best football he's ever played.
Yes.
I tweeted out, I'm shockingly surprised with N'Kosi Perry tonight. Because that's what I was. I was shockingly surprised.
It was 5, right?
I loved it. 6 drops.
6 drops.
I believe it's 5 by the receivers, 1 by the tight end. I believe that's what it was. I think. But either way, whatever, bro. 5, 6 drops, that's way too many. It's just, and that's the thing about this team. You can blame all you want on defense, but they made a bunch of mistakes on offense. A bunch. The defense actually, after the 21 points, they kind of limited Oak State to everything else.
Considering what you didn't have,
they allowed the offense to get back in, and they should have won the damn game.
Considering the guys you were missing, man, they did wake up. That defense played, man.
Yeah. And Toast in the morning, he's on 6 to 8 over at Onside with us, and he made a point that I rode with him on this point. He goes, I'm not giving any of the coaches credit last night. I think those kids came back on their own. That they saw what happened to King, and they just got emotionally jacked up, and they started making plays. And I agree with him on that. I think it was a bunch of pissed off kids because they love King. And I think they wanted to, they didn't want to go out that way, and they started playing hard. And it was,
well, he's there for them. He said he's coming back, right?
And it was beautiful to see King back there on his crutches, and he's cheering on N'Kosi and everybody else, and he's such a good kid. But